everything in between. Our goal with these live talks is to provide high value info and some actions that you can take. So stick around to the end so you actually get those actions that you can take to actually make some of these changes happen.
Yes, stay till the very, very end. That's the name of the game. I'm Rebecca, and if you're with us on Facebook, give us a thumbs up, say hi, tell us that you're here, whether you're in our Just for Fun group, Drop the Fat, Not the Tacos, or in our Clean Club. Just let us know that you're listening, ask any questions, and interact with us. And if you're not in one of our Facebook groups yet, I'm not
Shame.
really sure why. You're missing out on all the fun. So come in here so you can watch us do all these live talks, be part of the conversation. And I mean, really, it's just way funner in here anyway. So
Totally. All right. What are we talking about today?
ooh, I'm so excited.
Myths.
So we are discussing a very popular topic today, and it's actually something that most people have struggled with or worked on at some point in their life. Are you ready? Weight loss.
Weight
The
loss is
very
the biggest, broadest topic ever.
Yeah, this is just throw it out there, just a tiny little topic of weight loss. And actually, the very first thing I thought of when we decided on this topic is based off of my experience, especially with the work that Brandon and I are doing, that the end result, the actual goal itself, is probably not actually losing weight. Losing weight is, in my opinion, more of a side effect or a visible goal, I guess you could say, but it's not the actual thing that people are ever really trying to accomplish. The goal
Right.
itself is usually more like something along the lines of, I don't want to feel winded anymore when I climb the stairs. But we tell ourselves, I need to lose weight so it's easier to climb the stairs. Or maybe it's just, I want to feel comfortable in my own skin, or I want to be comfortable with myself. Instead,
Mm,
we tell ourselves, I'm fat, I need to lose weight. So, what we all want and what we're looking for is not strictly fat loss, it's gaining happiness, it's gaining confidence and being comfortable in your body. And yes, despite popular belief, it is sometimes about liking the way that we look.
yeah.
And that is actually part of having confidence. So, I think the other issues with weight loss that come up quite a bit are the quick fixes, that we all see, and they're completely unsustainable in the long run. All
Mm.
the fad diets that worked really great the first time I
Oh,
did it, or the one you always go back to because it works, right? Brandon, I'm just going to go back to that because it worked when I did it. You like that one, right?
yeah, it's my favorite. That's my favorite. I love hearing that. It
And
worked.
then, last but not least, there are extreme, crazy workout challenges. And I know that you've all seen them. They're the ones where you're required to work like 5 or 6 days a week for at least an hour, and you can't eat anything except for flavorless tofu and chicken and steamed vegetables for like six
Yeah.
to eight weeks. Mm. And, that sometimes really gets people trapped in this rut of a yo yo. You lose all this weight
Mm,
and go on these extreme diets and do these extreme challenges, and then you gain it all right back.
right.
It's hard to feel confident, comfortable, and happy in your own skin if it's constantly changing. If, you're not really ever staying the same weight for a while, it's going to be tough on your body over time too. So, Brandon and I are going to talk about some common myths in weight loss, make a few suggestions on how you could start working towards that lofty goal you've set yourself, and even better, we are going to talk about how you can get off the roller coaster, stop yo-yoing, and take steps towards not ever going to extreme measures for weight loss ever again. Doesn't that sound great?
I'll answer for you. Yes, it sounds great. um, yeah, and you talk about just such important things right there. And I get it. Like sometimes, like weight loss is often seen as the vehicle, and maybe it really is the vehicle toward some of those things that you talk about, right? And gaining happiness,
Mm-hmm.
or being able to do things that you're not able to do right now, knowing that you're going to live a long life for your kids, all those things, right? Um, but when we lose sight of that part of our goal, it makes it so much harder. right? Because a
Very
lot of the time the scale doesn't have to move nearly as much as we think it does, right? We see awesome changes happen, like you and I work together, right? And like it's not like you lost a ton of weight
right.
necessarily, but your body changed a lot.
Oh, totally.
So, sometimes we just get so fixated on this specific, standard that we've decided to focus on, and other things can be going much better than we think. But
Mhm.
yeah, and then the undeniable truth is that all of us want our results yesterday,
Yeah.
and a lot of the time that's what leads us to taking on those extreme measures, right? Those like crazy, like I'm gonna make myself miserable challenges, and I almost hate to like I hate to say it because we're about to run a challenge, and I think there's like value. It's yeah, we do things a little differently over
We're
here.
a
No
little
one's
different.
eating, no one's eating Brussels sprouts for 6 weeks, but
I
yeah,
might.
you might. Yeah, I mean, if you're into it, you're into it. I'm not going to tell you not to, but yeah, it's we have to really take into account what it is we really want, and what is realistic for our lifestyles, right?
So on that note, let's say we start with taking on one of your very favorite myths about weight loss and just shattering
Mm.
it for our viewers. So think of one and make it a juicy one.
Oh, what's the big? Well, God, I don't know how juicy it is, but it's
Uh-uh.
the big. I know, boring. But it's the huge calorie deficit methods, right? Like
Oh,
they keep Ugh, guys, they keep coming around. They're just under different brand names. That's what I keep seeing, like time and time again. Like, and it's frustrating because they always like it's rebranded. It's maybe they add like I don't know like a snazzy app, or they
mhm.
go about it a different way, whether it's like points or whether it's a color coded system or whatever. Like but they keep coming back around to like you're going to eat 1,200 calories a day,
Yep.
um, and the frustrating part is that they appear to work on the surface because they take you in the right direction fast,
Especially at first.
especially at first. Well, yeah, and then they jack up your metabolism, and they're miserable. So they're
Mhm.
not, even if they were good for you, they're not sustainable. Really. I
Yeah.
mean, some people manage to make a lifestyle out of it and they stick to it for a long time, and then they usually find that that crazy deficit has tanked their metabolism, and so now they're miserable and eating less food, and working like crazy usually in conjunction, and now going the opposite direction,
Yep.
right? Or not continuing to lose weight, and they're tired, right? And
Yeah.
fatigue that we always see, right? Your body
Mhm.
is freaking out because it's not getting enough calories, and it's like conserve, 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 meaning like go to sleep, right? Do less. Uh,
That's actually we might talk about sleep a little bit later on.
okay, let's talk about sleep.
But also, I agree with you, and I have to watch myself because I personally do have a huge disliking for calorie deprivation.
Oh
And
yeah,
if anybody's listening and you're getting annoyed with me because you love calorie counting or it's a method you're currently attempting, great. And I will say that everyone has a different body, different preferences, and if you are or have done calorie deprivation diets to reach your goals, it's okay if you did that in the beginning. I'm not
well done,
criticizing, but
well done, Anita.
just not everything works for everyone. And like Brandon said, it's usually one of those things where it does work in the beginning and maybe you get off to a great start, but it's not sustainable and it's not something that your body can handle for the long term.
Yeah, and it depends, if it brings you to that, to finding your sweet spot, that's great. I mean, that's fine. And I also want to like be clear and differentiate between calorie counting and just being mindful and like severe calorie restriction. Because sometimes we hear calorie counting, oh, I just count my calories, and we just immediately assume that this person's starving themselves, and it's not the case. Um, it works really, like, for some people, they love calorie counting. I can think of a handful of
Mhm.
people who really, it relieves their anxiety to know exactly where they are, and that's fine. Me, it's too
For sure.
I
That's
I
too much
think
work.
I think about this stuff too much as it is, right, yeah, and it's
Mhm.
part of my peace of mind comes from, like, not, that counting calories makes me obsess, right? It makes me sit down and really, like, yeah, focus, hyper focus on something I
Yep.
don't want to be hyper focused
Mm-mm. Okay, so how about this one? Carbs are bad. You can't eat any carbs if you're going to lose weight. And
on.
I actually really kind of love debunking this one because of my own personal struggles with
Yeah,
bread, pasta, all those traditionally thought of things as carbs.
right.
However, your body does actually need carbs, and there are actually lots of great carbs out there that not only are they more than okay to eat, but they're actually really, really, really good for you to work into your diet.
Yeah. Oh God, 100%. And, like, I don't know. There's not a whole lot more to say about it, except that, like, yeah, I mean, a lot of carbs are vital for our health. I mean, fruits and vegetables, especially, they're really important, guys. um, and it is really hard to eat too much of them as well. Um, and the stuff that comes with them, like, when we start getting into, breaking down our macros and getting into those, the severe carb restriction, it can really do a number on people. Not only because they're not getting enough energy a lot of the time, but because of all the things that come attached to those good carbs.
Mhm.
To me, the really important things to restrict, or limit, are the processed foods, especially
Yep.
the ultra processed foods. Like, some of the rustic breads and things like pastas, like, yeah, I mean, it's easy to go way overboard with those things, and that's the danger. And, yeah, flours, are, yeah, send some kind of mixed messages to our bodies without me, like, getting way deep into that. And we've covered that. But, yeah, it's really important to make sure that when, I see people who have, like, set their macros or had their macros set by a coach, and they've got the carbs just, like, ultra low, and they're wondering why they're tired or why they're having, like, other, issues that they didn't have before. Vitamins are pretty important, and you can't get them all from steak. you know
Nope,
um,
you sure can't.
no, so that is where I'll leave it on the on the
Perfect.
restricting carbs thing. um let's see, what's another one. I mean, and that kind of brings us to the other one that really sort of, I understand it. Like, I can sympathize with. So the argument, right, is it's expensive to eat healthy.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
there's a little bit of truth to that, right? Like, I don't know if it's, like, expensive to eat healthy as much as it's more time consuming to eat healthy. It's a little
Fair.
bit of work for sure. But yeah, we can dig into that, because that's definitely, I know, something that you like, the convenience, right? Like,
Yes.
making time to eat healthy is really the bigger issue to me.
Yeah.
But I do want to address, like, there are, everything is getting expensive, right? That's just, I don't know, like, okay, boomer, like, like, the
Mhm.
price of gas when I was a kid, candy bars cost a nickel. But it's true. Like,
Mhm.
food in general is expensive. We're spending extra money on food that we're not used to, and then on top of it, to, like, try to, um, parse out, like, to create meals, right? To actually cook for ourselves, it looks pretty expensive on the outside, because you're like, what the hell? Like, a bag of, produce is quite expensive when you can get a packaged meal for dirt cheap. But when
Yeah.
we start to really look at the volume of food, it ends up for the most part being a wash, unless you're eating, again, ultra processed foods are ultra cheap for a reason. Um,
Yeah.
and so we have to take a look at that. But I myself get caught up in that, right? Like I go to the grocery store and I'm like, oh my God, like I don't know, like maybe I should just get like I don't know what, I can't even think of anything because I don't really eat a lot of packaged stuff. But frozen meals, like there are a lot of pretty good ones, like that are out there, and the healthier ones are more expensive than the like Swanson's TV dinner or whatever. But
Mhm. I'm actually really, really happy that you're bringing this particular topic up because I've been finding myself having this conversation a lot lately. And before I explain, I want to start by saying I'm a bad vegan, meaning I'm vegan 90% of the time, my diet anyway. But if I go to a party or a mixer and there's cheese or crackers, like you try not eating that. You stay away from the cheese. It's not easy. But I mostly shop at the farmer's market on Sundays, and then I do get a weekly box from Imperfect. They actually knocked on my door just a couple minutes ago, and it's very cost effective. And I love getting
Mm,
my groceries that way for my wallet's sake also, but it's a lot easier for me to get healthy, organic foods I want to have around and avoid the things I don't want to be eating on a regular basis. Because
yeah.
as I'm picking out my stuff on Imperfect, I get to look at my cart and go, "Oh, yeah, no, we had Beyond Meat last week. We only are trying to eat it
Mm,
a couple times a month. I can knock that out." And, when I need something special because I'm vegan, like vegan cheese that doesn't taste like plastic, I'm
oh,
going to go to Whole Foods or somewhere that has things like that. And
yeah.
to your point, those things do cost more. If I'm going to go
Mhm.
buy something that is a vegan specialty product, but I also can make vegan cheese at home, it just,
It's a little bit of
takes a
time.
couple hours.
Well, and you bring up a really important point as well. Like if we can also sort of shift our focus away from like what it's costing us to buy our food. And I get it. Sometimes, like I mean, I've been there, guys. I've like it's been a long time, but but I've been in really tough spots where like I just got to get a loaf of bread for a quarter, right? And that's fine. I got to get the cheapest thing, whatever's going to get me through. I promise you, I've been there in a big way, and I get it. But if possible, if we can shift the way that we think about our food from from its sheer just cost and what it does for us and what it does for our community as well. When you go to the farmers market and you buy from a local farmer in your community, when you go to these maybe health food stores or other markets that source from local places, yeah, sometimes it's a little bit more expensive. Oftentimes I find that actually the farmers market is like way cheaper. um,
Bingo.
we're doing more than just buying crap to eat, right?
Mhm.
We are supporting our community. We are putting food in our, I mean, it's our bodies. It's our, that's our fuel. That is, I can't think of something, really more important than that. And so if we're going to cut corners, I think there are other places that we can do it. But food is just, I don't know. I, I, I just think that a lot of us could shift our focus a little bit toward the quality of our food and how meaningful it really is. Shall I keep going? Should I just
Well, you brought something up earlier that I want to comment on, and I do really agree with. It can be a bit of a time commitment to always eat on the healthy side. I find myself never in a position where I spend more money on my healthy organic groceries than my friend who spends money on their non-organic groceries. But we were just having this conversation last week and this struggle at lunchtime. What it
Mm,
takes. It takes time to be prepared. It takes time to be healthy, to be organized and mindful about what we're putting into our bodies. And it's adjustment for sure.
yeah,
But, it's not when I think about all the time, but that's really what it is. It's a bigger time commitment for me to eat healthy and to eat the way that I do than it is a financial commitment, because
totally.
I got to take the time to make my food. I can't just go down the street and buy something for lunch because it has 5 things in it that I'm trying to not put in my body.
Yeah, or just throw something in the microwave, or
Right.
throw like a packaged meal together. And there are some awesome services out there that do really make this expensive. um,
Mhm.
but yeah, the time commitment, like that, to me is probably the even bigger
For
barrier.
sure.
Is just and we see it a lot, right? Like we get a lot of questions about that. I mean, like that's why we have recipe packs and stuff for our people, because
Yep.
we run out of ideas. It takes time. It's nice to know that there are some options. Like um, we have spent time teaching people like how they can cook, and how they can have simple, make some simple prep go a really long way towards saving time, so they can actually cook a meal in
Mhm.
um, half an hour or something like that. Because
Yep.
I know for me that can be a major factor. Like I'm not going to eat for another hour and a half because I'm going to spend half an hour trying to figure out what to eat, and then another half an hour doing prep, and then half an hour actually
Mhm.
cooking.
Yep.
So
Well, so now that we've talked about some of the more common myths, let's move on to something slightly more positive, shall we?
okay.
So, if right now I'm listening to this and I wanted to start my weight loss journey, and that's why I'm listening to this, the first step that I should take is to make a plan that involves what I eat, how often, and what type of activity I'm doing. And then I should just completely overhaul my entire life to accommodate this brand new healthy lifestyle that I want to have, right? That way I can just be like, boop, new life and drop the weight real quick, right? That's how it
Hmm.
works.
I don't want to say
No.
that like never works, but like that never works. No, I mean, some of us can jump in and like boom, like overhaul our lives, and like you better be super connected to your why, right? And hopefully have a lot of willingness around that. I was just having a conversation about this actually with someone who is down here at the studio, but um, all of us have done that, right? Like we have all taken turns on that carousel, right? And yeah, and for a few of us, we can just like flip the switch, boom, new lifestyle overnight, and we're running with it, and never look back. I'd say that maybe probably less than 5% of us have a story like
Ooh, you're very generous.
that. I don't know whether you kind of spend some time in the lazy river, or if you just jump into the waves. I don't, that's it's subjective, but yeah, I don't see a lot of people who jump into the waves and make it, right? And we
Mhm.
do. We talk about that a lot here.
Yes, we
Most
do.
of the time when we jump in with both feet and tackle something as complex and uncomfortable, and slow, right? It feels slow, um,
So slow,
slow,
so
long
slow.
term, right? We're talking about lifelong stuff, and we want it to change overnight, right? By doing all the things right away. Um, yeah, we're often setting ourselves up for failure because it's just too much. Talk about like making the willpower last too long, like trying to make willpower last too long.
Mhm.
We have to remember it's like a battery, right? It's finite. It runs out. You can only force yourself to suffer for so long before it just runs out,
No
right?
mas.
The body is like,
Yep,
no more. I'm done.
yep.
And you can want it as much as you want, right? You can want it so much, but it doesn't matter sometimes how much you want things. That's like that, like a totally cruel thing to say.
No,
um,
it's an
well,
honest thing to say.
uh, so we need to start small, right? Like we've talked about that a lot, like, and work our way into all these changes, slowly and sort of systematically, because the habits you have in place that led you to where you currently are, those didn't happen overnight either. They happened over time. They're connected to stuff, right? Like, ooh, did we find that out in a big way when we were working together, right? These things
Mhm.
are connected to big things that we're often not thinking about, and it gets confusing when we try to just tear the band-aid off of some old wounds.
For
So
sure.
time is, it's 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 going to pass, right? No matter what we're doing. And so we don't have to just like charge. We don't have to do that. Um, but we
Yeah.
can rebuild habits, right? And um, it's not, again, like kind of circling back to the focus, right? If we're focused on that result and that measurement, right, then it, we're in for disappointment, right? Because it's never linear. It's never
Yeah.
straight, like straight to the goal, right? Where I'm really going on today, aren't I?
You
Let's
are.
move it on.
Well, I mean, that's definitely a hole that I found myself in several times. I think you and I were just talking about it last week. The first time that I realized I needed to lose weight and I didn't like the way I looked anymore, boom, starting tomorrow, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m., get a workout in, drink my lemon water daily, do meal prep on Sundays, all
Oh
my
my
meal prep on Sundays, all of my meal prep. And then I'm going to create a new nighttime routine so I get better sleep in 30 days. And I should be
God.
20 pounds lighter in boop, no time. And
Yep.
part of the reason I've fallen into that hole so many times is that's what you see in our industry. You see all these promises to drop that belly fat, lose all this weight in 30 days, and it's just not sustainable. And if you
Yeah.
can't do that past the 30 days, not really going to be very helpful other than a big womp womp.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it is. It's going to be it's going to be a disappointment probably, and the consistency is just so incredibly challenging, right? And yeah, I don't know. Did you just mention sleep? Because that's a thing.
I
It's
think
a
we're going
big
to talk
thing.
about that in a second.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're able to change up everything, that's great. You know, when we have that goal, it's fresh, right? We're all determined. Yeah. Sometimes we can be determined enough to hang around and actually make it, one,
Mhm.
and then two, to hang on to it. And I think there can really be value in a kickstart. Like I do. Like
True.
sometimes it's inertia, right? We're just
Fair
like
enough.
stuck where we are. But I think there's a right way to do it, for sure. We have to be really aware that the important factor is consistency, right? Over time.
Hmm.
Like we're doing a 6 week, commitment, not a challenge right
Not a
now
challenge. Challenge.
to help people kickstart some good habits, and get ahead of the holidays as well. And that's another thing, is just like having some foresight. But we always have our eye on that lifelong path, right? That's our focus here. And how do
Mhm.
we apply what we know and what we learn during those things to our daily lives, right? Not just like lose. I was gonna swear, lose 30 pounds, and whatever, and awesome, off you go. Now you're done.
Mhm.
Like, yeah. So it's a one day at a time process, but we can't necessarily put a finish line on our health, right?
Yep. Because that's really the goal when people talk about weight loss. The real end goal isn't just losing it, it's losing it and losing it for good. Nobody says, I want to lose these 30 pounds so a year from now I have those 30 pounds right back.
Right.
And, I don't want to go back to that version of myself that I didn't like, wasn't happy with, or didn't feel confident being. And I never, ever, ever want to find myself there ever again.
Totally.
So, to avoid the trap of an instant overhaul, are you saying that we should take things just a tiny bit slower?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Just a little?
in my opinion.
Your humble opinion
my not so humble
as
opinion,
a
because my
coach and
opinion is
trainer and physical therapist?
a decent coach will walk you through, a habit at a time, and find, do their best to find the right pace for you. And
Mhm.
it's kind of funny because I find that at my best, my clients want to move faster. They want to go further, and they want to do more. Right. And
Mhm.
sometimes, a lot of the time, to their detriment, right? Like,
Yes.
we're going to take this one thing, we're going to stick with it until you solidify it. And they're almost always like, okay, well, I'm also going to do this, and I'm also going to do that. Right. And we go back to
Nope.
what we know, right? Of taking
Yeah.
on all the shit at once. Um, so, but when we stick to that game plan, when we stick to, like, no, really, we're going to slow down and we're going to solidify this one thing, people are really surprised where it leads, and really how quickly, right?
Mhm.
And it might be, I don't know, it might be around more obvious stuff, like, what you're eating, or adding physical activity, or increasing it a bit. And
Or there's something you really, really wanna talk about that you might have mentioned once or twice.
what are we actually going to talk about sleep?
Oh, sleep!
Sleep can affect a lot of things. Yeah, yeah. Including chemical reactions in our body. I mean, it's just, sleep is tremendously important, and it can actually affect weight loss.
Sleep. Really? You're telling me that whether or not I'm getting enough sleep or even decent sleep at night may affect my plan to lose weight?
Big factor. It's actually a much bigger factor than people realize, as you found out recently, right? You looked up some
Well,
stuff.
it just so happens we were talking about this, and I actually found information on this sleep study done that was by Ezra Tassali. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. He's an MD. He's a director of the U Chicago Sleep Center at the University of Chicago Medicine. Holy crap, what a mouthful.
Yeah.
Ezra believes that sleep is one of the key aspects to fighting obesity in this
Mhm.
country. And so they did this randomized trial that was published earlier this year in February. And what they did was they took 80 adults who habitually slept less than 6.5 hours a night. I could have been in that sleep study. And
Mhm.
what they did with these adults is they increased the amount of sleep they were getting by an average of 1.2 hours per night. So everybody got at least 7 hours of sleep. The results that was on their weight was actually really fascinating. They compared natural caloric intake, meaning there was no direction to the participants to consume less or go on a diet. And participants reduced their caloric intake naturally by an average of 270 calories a day. Do you know what that means? That is one shitty late night snack at 11 o'clock because you can't sleep, but you really want to. And I've done it. I do it a lot, actually, but we're not going to get into that right now. But that's a lot of calories, even though it's a small amount. That could be a really big impact
Oh
just from
yeah,
getting
that
sleep.
definitely adds up pretty quickly. Yeah, the research is really clear on showing that people who sleep better eat better. That's one thing. But
Mhm.
also, sleep is a tremendous factor in our hormonal health, right? And
Yep.
our hormonal health is a huge factor in our weight control, and other areas of our health as well. So it's probably like the most, between sleep and hydration, are like neck and neck, and probably the most undervalued areas of our health. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're both huge. But sleep is just tremendous. If you're not getting enough sleep, yeah, you're gonna have cortisol issues, and that's a big problem. Big.
So, see, even sometimes you can take the tiniest baby step towards your goal and just really work your way into it. So, back to that whole habit building,
Yeah,
what
for
you're
the tangent.
saying is instead of trying to jump in with both feet and do all the things right away,
Mm,
instead of changing 10 things about my life tomorrow,
oh my gosh.
maybe start with one, no more than two. Does that
Yep.
sound about right?
Yeah, that's the way to go. Nobody likes to hear it. Nobody likes to do it. But it's funny, like, it just makes, I don't know, like we
Huge
talked about
difference.
it earlier. right? When
Hmm.
we focus on starting the habit, right? Like I talk about I have like kind of a concept, sort of a theory about like in what I call inertia management. Is just like getting over the hump and just starting, right? Like an
Yep.
object at rest tends to stay at rest. And once we can get going, we'll keep going as long as that path is sustainable and we're not taking on something that's going to come to a screeching halt whenever, you know, I don't know, whenever our schedule changes or
Right.
something, happens in life. Like if we make sustainable changes, we'll have sustainable results. Um, but yeah, when we focus on that habit rather than the result of the habit, things become more manageable and the habits become really easy. And then we have something that can grow more organically from the roots up, right? Without relying on all that willpower, and rather than like trying to, it's like planting a small tree versus plant a small tree that can grow right naturally, versus like planting a fully grown, oak tree in your yard, right? Like
Yeah.
this
Good
is
luck with that.
tremendous. Yeah. So I have a
I like
really
what you
good
said.
example of this just from this week. I started one of our favorite clients, and I started her a short while back with a simple, like really simple habit of doing 10 counter push-ups, like push-ups against the counter, not even, really, really strenuous stuff, and 10 squats. And that's it when she comes home from work, when she puts her keys away.
How long does that
And
take? 2 minutes?
yeah, literally less than 2 minutes. And this week during our meeting, she said that she was actually really craving more movement, and that she had self started doing her own, adding another thing, but she had
Nice.
taken my advice and just added one more thing, and that was feeling really good. And she was still feeling really good about it, right? Like how often does a trainer or coach get to hear that, hear that, right?
Hmm.
I want to do more, right? Like that's awesome. Because
Yep.
usually we're the torture guys, right? Like, oh, you're gonna come in, you're gonna beat me up. What are you gonna have me do? It's gonna be awful, right? And that's the difference. Creating willingness, through small change rather than relying on inconsistent and that finite willpower to make huge change.
Yep. Totally. 100%. And that is exactly how the change happens, taking small baby steps and having people who can support you. So I'm going to let Brandon take us out. But if you're wondering where you might find a community right here in the Bay Area, we do have a fitness studio. We're doing a non-challenge challenge starting yesterday, where
Yesterday,
we're just encouraging everyone who comes to the gym. It's free for our members to come and take class 3 times a week, to
yep,
avoid sugar and avoid flour for a few weeks. And that's it. We're not doing anything crazy or extreme. You can actually season your tofu and your chicken to whatever flavor you like. We're just trying to help you build the habit of being more active and maybe avoiding some things to not eat on a daily basis, like sugar.
yep,
Nothing wrong
yep.
with that,
We're
right?
eliminating sugar. We're eliminating sugar and flour, and alcohol. That's the goal. If you, some people are modifying some things and they're taking on, what they find reasonable for themselves, which is totally fine. But yep, I've got the tracking sheets down here. If you are in the Clean Club, I can send you the tracking sheets for you to print out if you are not local to us but you are part of the Clean Club. I can send that to you as well, guys. Just a shout out to you. I feel like we haven't been live in a while, so it's good to be back. You guys, yeah, if you want to be part of that, reach out to me. I'll let you know how that works. Um, and beyond that, keep doing what you guys do. Keep showing up for yourself and showing up for the people around you and being part of your community. And if you need to be lifted up, raise your hand and we'll lift you up. And if you see somebody else who needs to be lifted up, lift them up. Keep doing that for each other. Um, I love you guys. Rebecca, I know you love everybody
I
too.
love you guys too.
All right. And we will see you next week. We'll announce our topic for our next talk soon. And I look forward to hearing from you guys. All right.
Bye,
Everyone.
guys.
Bye.